This video I am making to talk about a Bible prophecy which is called a covenant with death. This prophecy can be found in an Old Testament scripture in the book of Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 15. The audience I am hoping to reach with this video are Jehovah's Witnesses, but anyone else who's interested in Bible prophecy should watch this video. If you're any kind of Christian denomination or even a Jew, because after all Isaiah is one of your scriptures, or a Muslim, you should be very interested in understanding what the covenant with death is and how the covenant has been fulfilled. So please watch this video. I'll be using the New World Translation of the Holy Bible, and the reason for that is because after all the main audience is Jehovah's Witnesses and it is their Bible. So in order to make the video more credible, I'll use their translation, but if you have any other kind of Bible, feel free to read the scriptures from that Bible because they're just as relevant. So the first thing I'm going to do is read the scripture to you from the New World Translation of the Bible, and hopefully you'll also spend a lot of time reading it in your own Bible to understand what this covenant with death really is. So here we go. Here's a reading of the scripture. It's Isaiah chapter 28. I'll read verses 14 to 18. Therefore, hear the word of Jehovah, you braggarts, you rulers of this people who are in Jerusalem, because you men have said, we have concluded a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have effected a vision. The overflowing flash flood, in case it should pass through, will not come to us, for we have made a lie our refuge, and in falsehood we have concealed ourselves. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah has said. Here I am laying as a foundation in Zion a stone, a tried stone, the precious corner of a sure foundation. No one exercising faith will get panicky, and I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the leveling instrument. And the hail must sweep away the refuge of a lie, and the waters themselves will flood out the very place of concealment. And your covenant with death will certainly be dissolved, and that vision of yours with Sheol will not stand. The overflowing flash flood, when it passes through, you must also become for it a trampling place. So that's the scripture about the covenant with death. So now let's examine the scripture. Please notice this scripture is addressing the rulers of the people who are in Jerusalem, God's people, the city of God. So there should be 12 rulers, a leader for each of the tribes. And he's calling them braggarts. So these rulers of God's people have gone beyond their assigned duties, beyond those things that they were permitted to do. So exactly what is a covenant with death? I hope everyone understands that a covenant is an agreement or a contract. And so if these rulers of God's people have made a contract with death itself, then they're actually hoping to live. They expect that they will not die. And also notice that they're expecting a flash flood or some kind of impending situation where they will survive. So please consider that these people already knew, the rulers of God's people already knew that a future situation would happen which they hoped to survive. So now, if these are the rulers of God's people, and Isaiah is a prophetic book, then is it addressing the rulers of Isaiah's contemporaries? Or is it addressing the rulers of God's people at some time in the future? Well, the next few verses help us to understand exactly the time period that Isaiah is addressing in this scripture. So here is the scripture which helps us understand exactly what time period Isaiah is writing about here. It's in verse 16 of Isaiah chapter 28. I'll read it again. Here I am laying as a foundation in Zion a stone, a tried stone, the precious corner of a sure foundation. No one exercising faith will get panicky. And so what is Jehovah talking about here? Well, all Jehovah's Witnesses know exactly who is the tried stone, the precious cornerstone of a sure foundation. Yes, Jesus Christ. Jehovah is talking about Jesus Christ. He is the one who will dissolve the covenant with death. And so, if it's Jesus Christ who will dissolve the covenant with death, then Isaiah is not addressing the rulers of God's people during his own time. In fact, he must be addressing the rulers of God's people either during Jesus Christ's time when he was on the earth or sometime after that. And in fact, I'd like to draw your attention to where he says, a tried stone, the cornerstone of a sure foundation. And so therefore, Jesus Christ has already been tried. The stone has been tested and is already the sure stone, the cornerstone, which means he's addressing people, the people living after Jesus Christ is tried and resurrected. And so, does that mean therefore that the rulers of God's people, of the 12 tribes of Israel, could Isaiah be addressing the apostles, the 12 apostles? And did they make some kind of covenant with death? I hope everyone will agree that no. You cannot find a covenant with death made by any one of these 12 apostles in the Gospels or in any of the other New Testament scriptures. And so Isaiah is not addressing first century Christians. Isaiah is addressing end time Christians, those people who are inside God's kingdom during the conclusion of this system of things. So, if Jehovah's Witnesses are in God's true kingdom during this time of the end, then have they made a covenant with death itself? Well, yes, they have. Let me show you. The covenant with death. So when was this covenant with death made? Well, it was first announced, officially announced, on February 24th, 1918, by one of the rulers of God's people. His name was Rutherford. This occurred in a talk that he gave to a district convention in Los Angeles, California. And a few years later, in 1920, it was published in a book called Millions Now Living Will Never Die. The Covenant with Death. And so the rulers of God's people at that time, and even continuing down to today, the rulers of Jehovah's Witnesses, still say that millions now living will never die. And they expect very shortly a situation to occur on the earth, a tribulation and a war, where many people will not survive. And yet they have convinced 6 million Jehovah's Witnesses that they will survive. They will be hidden from denunciation, concealed through this covenant with death. So remember what it said in Isaiah chapter 28? I'll read it again. The overflowing flash flood, in case it should pass through, will not come to us, for we have made a lie our refuge, and in falsehood we have concealed ourselves. And so the leaders of God's people are convinced that they will be hidden, concealed in this lie. And I'd like to bring your attention to a Watchtower magazine. 1983, July 1983 Watchtower magazine. And there's an article in this magazine, and the title of the article is The Live Men of Faith Who Will Never Die. Yes, the leaders of God's people are talking about themselves. I would now like you to look at a subheading of this same article, and it says, Live Companions of Those Hidden from Divine Denunciation. So now they're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses, who, because they are associated with the rulers of God's kingdom, will be hidden from denunciation. And so the rulers of God's people realize that there is an impending judgment which they expect to survive. And let me remind you what it says in Isaiah chapter 28 about these rulers and what they think. Here it is. It says, the overflowing flash flood, the impending judgment, in case it should pass through, will not come to us, for we have made a lie our refuge, and in falsehood we have concealed ourselves. Concealed, hidden from divine denunciation. In this same Watchtower article, July 1983, let me read you what it says at the end of paragraph 19. It says that Armageddon, that global war, will mean total destruction for those faithless nations. This will signify the end of this system of things. And then it continues in the next paragraph. Then only the sheep-like people of faith, those who belong to the one flock of the fine shepherd, will escape death. This includes the great crowd of the other sheep. At Revelation 7, verse 9 to 17, these were forevisioned as coming alive out of the great tribulation and entering into the millennial system of things on earth. Why should these ever need to die off the earth? The covenant with death. Let me read to you also the beginning of paragraph 21 of this same Watchtower article, and see if you can find the covenant with death. Here it is, paragraph 21. Unquestionably, so late in this time of the end, since the end of the Gentile times in 1914, there are many live men and women of faith and integrity who will never die off the face of the earth, God's footstool. The covenant with death. And so, I'd like to ask all Jehovah's Witnesses and any Christian person or Jew or Muslim or anyone watching this video, have you ever heard of such a profound covenant with death ever being made at any time during any kind of religious history? And certainly since Jesus Christ's death and resurrection, I hope that if you are a righteous Jehovah's Witness or any kind of person, you will agree with me that there never, ever has been such an extraordinary covenant with death announced throughout the entire world. Millions now living will never die. That is the covenant with death. There is one very interesting thing to consider, however. If you do agree that this really is the covenant with death, then you also have to agree that it's being made by the rulers of God's kingdom, and that therefore identifies Jehovah's Witnesses as God's true kingdom, or that it once was. And I hope you'll also understand that after this transgression, the covenant with death, that there's also many others, like the man of lawlessness, the disgusting thing standing in a holy place, the wild beast, the 10 kings who give away their power to the wild beast, the man's number, how it equals 666. I've written about it in a book called Jehovah's Witnesses, the Bible Report. And in this book, I really only do one thing, and that's actually something described in the scripture in the book of Revelation. What I've done, and I'll read the scripture to you. What this book does is it measures the temple sanctuary of God and the altar and those worshiping in it. What it does is measure the value of worship happening inside of God's kingdom during the Lord's Day, the conclusion of this system of things. And so if you really want to know, and you really want to understand that Jehovah's Witnesses are God's kingdom, then you should get this book. You can find a link in my channel, my YouTube channel, and if you click on that link, it'll take you to a place where you can obtain the book. Please tell your friends, your Jehovah's Witness friends, because understanding these things means their life. They will see the disgusting thing, and they will know that it is the proper time to flee, to withdraw from the city of God. But remember what it said in that scripture in Revelation about measuring the temple sanctuary. It also said this in the same scripture. But as for the courtyard that is outside the temple, cast it clear out and do not measure it, because it has been given to the nations, and they will trample the holy city, God's city, underfoot. And now remember what it said in Isaiah about the covenant with death. It said, the overflowing flash flood, when it passes through, you must also become for it a trampling place. As often as it passes through, it will take you men away. It's the same thing. It's talking about the holy city of God during the time of the end, and how it's being thoroughly undermined. Read the book. It means your life. Isaiah chapter 28 explains what it would be. The things that would remove or reveal the covenant with death and sweep away the lie. And I'll read it again. Here it is. It says, I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the truth. The leveling instrument and the hail must sweep away the refuge of a lie and the waters, truths. The waters themselves will flood out the very place of concealment. So what is it that will dissolve this covenant with death? Truths coming from the Spirit of His mouth. Truths indirectly coming from Jesus Christ, the King of the universe. And so, this video and the book that I'm offering you to read are the leveling instrument that will dissolve the covenant with death. When a righteous Jehovah's Witness sees this, they'll know that it's the truth. Justice and righteousness will dissolve the covenant with death. Please read the book. Save your life. So what is it that will really save your life? It's your love of the truth, the love of righteousness. And what is it that is putting your life in jeopardy? It's believing in a lie, the covenant with death. And so, why has Jehovah let this continue for so long, allowing Jehovah's Witnesses to believe in this covenant with death and operate in error for such a long time? Well, I'm going to read a scripture to you. It's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Here's the scripture. Chapter 2 and verse 9. But the lawless one's presence is according to the operation of Satan with every powerful work and lying signs and portents, and with every unrighteous deception for those who are perishing, as a retribution because they did not accept the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So that is why God lets an operation of error go to them, that they may get to believing the lie, the covenant with death, in order that they all may be judged, because they did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in unrighteousness. They loved the lie, the covenant with death. Please read the book.